Well, good evening, or whatever time of day it is where you are. This is the video for May the 11th, Sunday, and the title is Dealing with Disappointment. I'm really not in the space I thought I would be in when making today's video. Let me begin with two quotations. Vernon Howard said, quote, "Human sickness is so severe that few can bear to look at it, but those who do will become well." End quote. Jiddu Krishnamurti said, quote, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted in a profoundly sick society." End quote. Earlier, I had a long talk with a friend about loneliness and relationships. I could relate. Despite my low feelings, I promised to be authentic when I began making these videos, and I'm not going to change that today or anytime soon. I'm really not certain where I will go with this, but I want to take a look at human sickness and a society that lives in fantasy, because the reality is often too painful. And I really don't know where I'm going to go with this. I woke up this morning and had great expectations for the day. I had determined to let go some of my resistance, but things did not flow exactly as I anticipated, and I'm not going to go into the detail of that. I'm going to paint it with broad strokes that avoid detail, and I'm going to do that on purpose. What I am acknowledging, though, is my sense of disappointment. It was further accentuated, if you will, when one of my friends wrote to me about how much the recent videos have made on their particular life, and how they were considering things like open relationships and stuff like that that they'd never considered before as even a possibility. And we had a long conversation, and the big issue that came up was loneliness. And I get it, because most of my life I've been lonely. And I live in a world among many people. I mean, I've done workshops and all sorts of things to help people deal with emotions, and inevitably, workshops are a primary issue. Even when people are in a relationship, even when people are have a partner, often there is a profound sense of loneliness. And it's pervasive in our society. We live in a society where love has been metered out in limited dosages, and it doesn't seem like there's enough to go around, and yet it's because we have become wardens of our own prison and created and bought into the control belief system that we're only supposed to love one person at a time, and we're only supposed to love somebody if we can make a commitment to them to be their one and only. And so we are deprived of touch. We are deprived of intimacy. And I'm talking now about emotional availability as well as physical, sensual, and sexual touch. We are deprived of that throughout our culture. And we all know, if we've been around for any length of time, that babies, even baby animals, will die if they are not touched. And that's true of humans, and it's true of mammals. And yes, granted, those that are hatched from eggs don't need that, but mammals and humans do. They die if they are not touched. And what we have done in our culture that is basically very touch deprived is we have killed the inner child, the innocent little child within us, because we have not gotten enough hugs, enough kisses, and enough touch, and enough pleasure of just being close to other beings in our relationships, to other humans. And of course, some people substitute animals in place of humans, but we're supposed to in my opinion, we're supposed to relate to each other, human to human, and we're supposed to meet each other's needs and help each other along the way. But we've become a competitive society. It is, as Vernon Howard said, it's a human sickness. And we've been programmed with this sickness in ourselves to believe that even love, which the universe is a loving universe, but we've been programmed to believe, because of our belief systems, because of what we've been indoctrinated with, that belief has to be rare, and only under certain circumstances are we allowed to express ourselves sexually or intimately, even in an emotional sense. We are held apart from each other by our very culture, by the programming of the Matrix. It is a human sickness that is pervasive in our society. And as Krishnamurti said, it's a profoundly sick society. We don't love one another, and we don't even know how to love ourselves. And when we do love ourselves through fantasy, it's considered wrong. And there's a brainwashing that I've been dealing with my whole life in regard to touching myself, in regard to pleasuring myself, that all of this is considered wrong. So I have lived much of my adult life, even quite frankly, when I've been in relationships, much of my adult life has been spent in a fantasy world, a hoped-for world that never quite gets there. It never quite turns out the way it was imagined, the way it was envisioned, the way it was desired. It always seems to fall short. And so we're dealing as humans with this inward pain of feeling disconnected in a universe that is actually interconnected, but we've been so programmed by the sense of separation and by the illusion of separation that we don't experience the joy. We don't experience the pleasure. We don't experience the connectedness that is actually the truth. It is actually the reality, but it's not the reality that most humans experience. And I took a look at that today, and I've been doing Ho'oponopono, looking at Ron. I love you, Ron. I'm sorry you feel so lonely. Please forgive me for imprisoning you in beliefs that don't meet your needs. Thank you for listening to me. I'm not saying those were the exact words, but that's the gist of what I was doing for an extended period of time this afternoon as I dealt with my loneliness following this conversation with my friend. And it was amazing to me how much I resonated, even though I have a very close friendship and relationship being developed. I was still able to relate because in the past, that's where I've lived. That's where I've been. And I was feeling it today because even in my current relationship, things did not come about exactly as I had thought they were going to happen today, which left me with a feeling of great disappointment. And my friend wrote me an email not very long ago, actually, an hour or so ago, saying, I recognize that I disappointed you today. It's not my intention to disappoint you. And it's not. I know that. It's not anybody's intention, I don't believe, most of the time anyway, to actually disappoint someone. But we have expectations. For me, I developed a fantasy of what's possible, and I had made a decision to let go of certain things, and I didn't get the opportunity to experience the letting go. And I can't be any more specific than that. But in any case, I don't want to be completely well adjusted in a world where most people are still hurting. I want to be able, as I've always done, to identify with the underdog, to identify with those that are hurting, to identify with the cry of the human heart. Please love me. Please see me. Please hear me. Please touch me. Please recognize who I am. Please. And that's a cry that goes out. It's a cry that I've heard over and over again, coming from my own heart and coming from the heart of many people around me. And I want to do something to help, which is why I'm so excited about the potential of what is in front of me with this goddess, this priestess, this prophetess that is in my world right now. But she's a busy person. She doesn't always have enough time to do things that I would like to do. And that's just the reality that I have to accept. Things happen that pull on strings, and I've said this before in other things. And so even with someone that loves to love me and wants to love me, even then there are disappointments that happen. And I don't know exactly what to do about it, because I recognize the logic of her situation, and I recognize the logic of many of our situations. And yet, for me, I'd like to get out of the fantasy world and having relationships only in fantasy. That's what pornography and masturbation are all about. It's a fantasy world that doesn't have a whole lot of strings attached, because it's just you and images. And it's not real. No matter how much you try to make it fulfilling, it's not fulfilling. And that's the reality of living in a fantasy world. Because we don't make the adjustments. We haven't been able to make the adjustments to actually living in the real world and getting our needs met. We haven't been able to do that because of our culture, because of the way that we've been programmed, again, brainwashed to think that love is in limitation, that there's only a certain amount of love to go around, and we have to compete for the little bit that's there. And this is part of the sickness that permeates our culture. Maybe I'm the only one that sees it, but I don't think so. Are you well adjusted to living in a culture like this? Can you even see that this is what's happening? Can you hear the cry of the hearts of your brothers and sisters that are crying out to please, please, please touch me, please love me, please share with me, please see me, know who I am, hear my cry, hear my heart? Yeah, that's the world that we live in. But how many of us turn a deaf ear to that because it doesn't feel good to look at it? We need to hold each other till the fear subsides. We need to hold each other until the pain diminishes and we're able to start experiencing joy with each other, and to experience pleasure and fulfillment instead of disappointment upon disappointment, which pushes us further and further down into a fantasy world of make-believe, because the real world, we don't get our needs met. And I don't know what else even to say as I look at these things. I mean, I look at Swiss Indo, and people have asked me, what's happening there? Truthfully, nothing that I can see. Nothing that I'm aware of. Now, I was invited to attend the meetings again. They're on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I had intended to do it on Thursday, but it didn't happen. Other things preempted that, and I didn't get to attend the meeting. It's at 4 a.m. my time. So it's not like it's an easy meeting to attend. It's in the middle of the night. I'm often up then, but I totally forgot because I'm not used to doing that anymore. But as far as Swiss Indo goes, I still think it's the only plan to change the world that I think has viability to actually work. But something is stopping it. Something is holding it up. And I don't know what that something is. If I knew how to fix it, I'd fix it. If I knew what to do, I'd do it. But again, it's a fantasy of something that hasn't yet materialized in the real world, which is why I'm so excited about the possibility of working with my priestess friend in actually co-creating together, using pleasurable energy, using orgasmic energy to help create with passion the world that does work for everybody, where people's needs are met, where we can move out of fantasy into reality, into fulfillment, into a better life and a better world for more and more people, an increasing number of people that are able to step out into this area of fulfillment that has been denied to humans for such a long time, as we've been enslaved by the programming that makes us wardens in our own prison, our own little boxes. And I want to break out of that box that I've been in so badly. My inner child cries out with all of its might, let me go, set me free. Hear me, please hear me. And Ron is hearing the cry of my inner child. Ron is hearing that cry, and Ron is going to be making, and is already making, and has already made decisions to release some of the lies that I've been imprisoned by, lies that I bought into of limitation. I want to break free from that, and I'm asking for as much help from the universe and from human beings that are willing to stand with me and to work with me on this, to love in a way that I've never loved before, and in a way that I believe most humans have never loved before, with not just unconditional love, but love without limits. That's what I want to experience in my life, in my world. And I believe that I'm on the verge of doing that, and yet sometimes it seems that it just isn't going as fast as I'd like, and that's disappointing. Swiss Indo isn't going as fast as I'd like, and that's disappointing. The reconciliation of everything in the world, the reconciliation of man with God, isn't going as fast as I'd like, and that's disappointing. There are many disappointments, and as Vernon Howard said, the sickness is so severe that few are willing to even look at it, but those that do will become well. We must integrate our opposites. We must move out of fantasy, because this is what healing is all about. It's about becoming whole again for the very first time in our human experience. We can do it, but we need to be willing to let go and to love one another as God truly does love us, and to recognize that even when we feel lonely, we're not separate. We are interconnected in a beautiful web of life, and may we all have our eyes open and our hearts open to be able to see that web of life, and to encourage and to help each other be lifted out of the disappointment into joy. That's my prayer. That's my intention. Namaste.